All right, welcome to the Run.down. I'm Jeff, aka Frank Barrett 119, and I'm here with Tyrese, aka London's Theory. Knicks lose, and it's also unfortunately looking like the Nets are going to beat the Cavs. So rough night for our Knicks. We lose to the Magic 111-106 in Orlando. I'm not going to give my thoughts right away. I will say that if you're in here looking for at least both of us to just completely bash the Knicks, I think I'm probably going to be more optimistic than the average person. I tend to fall that way in general, and we'll get into it more. But I'm gonna send it over to Tyrese. Tyrese, what were your overall thoughts on the game?
That's kind of it. It really, just really lackluster game. Like they just didn't play hard into the second quarter, and then they showed life in the third quarter. And that third quarter was really, really good. They were down 19 at one point, and then they were able to tie it. And then the fourth quarter happened, and they kind of just shoot themselves in the foot, and that kind of spelled out the game. We will get to why they shot themselves in the foot in a little bit, but I think you know my answer at this point if you've watched this long enough. Um, Yeah, just really rough game from Julius, very rough game from RJ. I think quickly played really well, but just could not sustain it late. And I think Grimes was the best player on either team tonight. Just
He was amazing.
Yes, he was great point of attack defense. He was great as a facilitator. He was doing a lot of the dirty work, and he was rewarded tonight, 38 minutes, which is by far the most minutes he's played since Josh Hart was acquired. You could tell he did everything for this team tonight, and the fact that they were able to make it a game kind of shows how much he was beneficial. They were plus 17 in his minutes. That should tell you how good he was. But yeah, you wish there was a bit more fight earlier, and instead of having to play catch up. There are questions about the defense. I think my main concern with the defense is I thought it was more of a Mitch's out thing, and the defense would rebound. But now the defense, like it did earlier in the season, where guys are late closing out the shooters, they're closing out lazily. You're able to collapse the paint really easily and just spray it out to open shooters, and there's no recovery. And truthfully, I thought the numbers of the defense would noise, but they're going to be probably the 20th ranked defense after this game, which is not good. And if they're the 20th ranked defense, that kind of speaks to how poor they've played as a team.
Yeah. I do want to say, I think we're going to talk about RJ a lot tonight, so I'll leave that to. I absolutely hated what Julius did before halftime.
Yes.
That shit is. You know, a lot of people talk about what Brunson's done for this team, and I don't think it's any of Quickly's fault that Julius is the way he is with Brunson and the way he is without Brunson. I don't think that Brunson's putting magic spin on the ball, but at a certain point, Julius just isn't cut out to be the guy on a team, and he needs somebody he truly respects. And here's the thing: we all love Emmanuel Quickly. You could see what Julius Randle thought of Emmanuel Quickly as they were walking off the court together. That's not someone who is looking at an equal. That's someone looking at a little brother. And I truly believe that Jalen Brunson's the only player on the team that he views as an equal. And so,
and in some aspects, rightfully so.
Sure. I get what you're saying. I'm not sure I 100% agree with it, but I do get what you're saying. I think we're going to talk about that a lot. I hated it. I thought Julius at the end of the third quarter and for some of the fourth quarter was actually magnificent. I actually thought that little stretch, the fight the Knicks showed, was inspired by Julius. I feel like people are mostly going to expect positive Julius stuff to come from you, but I just wanted to make sure that was thrown out there. Like, he wasn't just dog shit from start to finish. There were some good Julius moments, but the thing is that he's supposed to step up when Jalen's out, and he hasn't. And not only is he shooting worse, he matches it with an attitude that ranges from lethargic to just downright careless. His defense in the first half was just awful. He just doesn't pay attention a lot of the time. And he was turning it into a personal battle with Paolo Banchero. Like, dude's a rookie. What are you doing? Like, I don't know. I get he was frustrated. And honestly, I understood his frustration because Banchero's like power forward Trae Young in his trickery. Like, he gets a very friendly whistle with all of his, like, very Siakam-like. Like, he likes to contort his body, gets a lot of light whistles. And then Julius, for the second straight game, is getting crushed. But he just has to be able to play through it. He does. So I don't know. This isn't meant as a defensive Julius. Yeah, I mean, to try and spin it back positive, Grimes was just so good. And look, I mean, you don't want to, like, make it seem like you're saying that the Knicks are better. Obviously, they're not better. But, like, it's not surprising that Grimes and RJ and these guys, like, it's just a more egalitarian system when certain people are on the court. And, you know, whether it was somebody who is in Grimes' ear or Grimes getting more minutes with quickly, Grimes has been more aggressive these last two games and looking for his own shot. And that's huge for the Knicks come the playoffs. Huge. Because, and I've said it before, I'll say it again, the Knicks' ceiling in the postseason assumes Brunson and Randall play well. If they don't play well, there's no run happening. So once you get past that, like, okay, Brunson and Randall have played well, their ceiling can only raise if guys like Grimes and RJ find it. We'll talk about that later, but Grimes for 2 games now has not only just been making shots, but has been aggressive in a way we haven't seen in months. Very, very encouraging. And yeah, I guess we can start the RJ stuff. RJ was, God, what was he? He was
ass.
He was 3 of 12 from the field. He had 5 turnovers. I mean, he doesn't have the right to turn the ball over 5 times. That's like, his turnovers are actually starting to become worrying. Like, I mean, he's not creating enough to turn it over. That one turnover where he spun at the top of the key, lost it, and then did the Cam Newton, I'm going to pretend like I'm going to dive on the ball, but I'm not going to dive on the ball. That was awful. I'll send it over to Tyrese. I'll send it over to you, Tyrese. What did you think of RJ?
I just fucking thought he sucked, but it's like, I'm not surprised he sucked because this is par for the course with RJ. He has a couple of good games, and you're like, he's turning the corner. Like that game yesterday, we lost, but like he passed out of drives really well. He played very solid defense in my opinion, aside from playing on hero, but he played really solid defense otherwise. He like was up and getting physical and getting vertical, and you see these little flashes, and you're like, just do this at least 80% of this every game, and there's a chance that like there's a player in there that we could fit into a team. And then now he comes out and he just does this, and you're like, well, great. You're like you're missing bunnies, and you can't hit shit from 3. You are not that good of a passer. You're weak on the offensive boards, and like, I'm not surprised because this is what RJ has been his entire career. Just when you think he's turning the corner, he just shuts his brain off. And truth be told, you can talk about development and you can talk about, oh, well, Randall had a bad game too, but it's like, I think, as Schwinn said a couple nights ago, those guys have built up more credit. Those guys have just done more for this team winning to where, like, bad games, you can excuse them more frivolously. And RJ Barrett has not contributed to winning as well as much as he should have, given his contract, given his draft status, given his importance on this team. He is legitimately the worst high-usage player in the league. You could argue Russell Westbrook, but I feel like Russell Westbrook has been marginalized this season. He was coming off the bench for the Lakers. He plays with the Clippers are essentially like giving him spot starter minutes and then like having him with the bench unit. It's a weird dichotomy. We'll see what happens with the Paul George thing, but like I don't think there's an argument to be made that he hasn't been the worst high usage player in the league this season, which is bad because last season he was bottom 5. So it's like you get the point guard, you fix the starting lineup, Julius is back, like Grimes is able to take up his assignment on the perimeter, in theory making his job easier. Brunson is able to carry the scoring load, so all he really needs to do is get like high quality shots and convert on those, and he can't do it. So it's a question of like if he can't do third option stuff, and even when he can't do the third option stuff, he's not like hustling more for rebounds. He's not like passing out of drives more. Like he can be a 5 rebound, 5 assist guy, and the fact that it only happened 8 times this season is nuts. The fact that it only happened I think 2 times this entire calendar year, and we're about 4 months into the year. We played a whole lot of games, and he's had I think 2 games of 5 rebounds and 5 assists. That should be regular. That should be an everyday thing. The fact that Emmanuel quickly has done that more coming off the bench, given his role, is nuts.
It is crazy.
Like, how before a couple of games ago, like Jalen Brunson had more blocks than him. Like, I think that just kind of shows you, like,
that is such a. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but the stocks have always been worrying.
Yeah, like, and the whole thing was he doesn't get stocks because he's a positional defender. He's not even using his size. He might as well. He's 6'6". He might as well be 6'1". Like, you can make him Deuce this height, and I swear, like, you can switch him and Deuce, and I swear, like his level of effort with Deuce's height would be like Sharif Cooper. It's maddening to see like somebody who has like the pedigree that he does, the physique that he does, just squander it because like he's just not a functional athlete. He just can't do the things that you expect him to do with the 3rd overall pick. And look, I get it. I've been very hot takey with my opinions on RJ Barrett, but when you're proving me right, it's hard to be like, well, I'm wrong. Like, and when he has a good game, I would tell him he has a good game. Like yesterday, I thought he had a really good game. That was one of his more positive games of the season. Like he shot the ball well, he finished well, he was able to draw free throws as well. But I don't know if you're the Knicks, how you're not like done with him after the season. I don't know why, because like you can say, oh, he's gonna like bounce back and he's gonna figure it out. It falls on him now. It falls on him because last year you could argue, okay, well, Jalen Brunson is going to be able to at least alleviate Randall. You know, the idea is basically you can get him a better shot chart, put him in some more conducive lineups, and then he'll be able to play better. And the stats bore that out last year because Emmanuel Quickly, when he played with it quickly, his true shooting went up like 5%. He wasn't as efficient as he is now, but he was still a better player than he was when he was playing with Alec Burks and Kemba Walker, so on and so forth. For RJ Barrett, it comes down to his development. It is solely him. He is the only swing factor. And truth be told, like, you see what the Knicks are. I think everybody sees what the Knicks are. You're hearing stuff Windhorst say, like, they can trade for 2 star-level players. Like, now, I don't know how much credence I give that report, but the sentiment is right. Like, they can trade for a guy whenever they want to. It just depends on if they want to. And, look, I'm sorry if RJ Barrett is going to keep playing like this, and I have no reason to think he's not going to because he's played like this all season, especially when you thought he's going to turn it around. He's going to turn it around. Like, he's played like this all season. Just when you think he's there, he starts like you take 1 step forward, 2 steps forward, and then he takes 3 steps back. So for me, I'm kind of just like disappointed but not surprised. I think it's time to cut bait. Let the playoffs play out. Hopefully the Knicks are able to get themselves and find themselves and make it a competitive series. I'm not saying they're going to lose. I'm not immediately declaring that. Also, thank God Cleveland won this fucking game. Holy shit.
They won?
Holy shit, they won.
Man, I who hit the 3? Who hit, it has to be Mitchell, right?
I think it was Mitchell.
No, it was Isaac Okoro. All right. We'll take it. The Knicks are low, but the Nets are.
You know what? We'll take it. I mean, Miami is the 7th seed, but no, Miami's gonna be
I'll say something crazy. If the Sixers pass the Celtics, I think you could argue the 6 is better than the 5. We fade the Bucks in round 2. Like,
true.
I don't know. Like, I don't know. The Celtics are definitely better than the Cavs. It just depends on, like we definitely lose the first round more against the Celtics than the Cavs, obviously. But the times we do win, I mean, I would rather play the Sixers in the second round than the Bucks. I don't know about you.
Yeah, it's the Sixers. You crowd Joel Embiid, make him a passer, and you kind of see what happens. But I still concur with Nick Legend. But yeah, I don't know what to say about RJ Barrett other than this is par for the course, and it should not be par for the course, but it is, unfortunately. And if you're the Knicks, I think you have to kind of just accept the fact that you're not. It's all on him, and he hasn't shown that he's able to do what you need him to do. And it's clear, like, you see the archetype that they want. You see the archetype that they want. They want someone who could, like, collapse the defense on drives, be a shooter, and be able to, like, run offense. And you're not getting it from RJ Barrett consistently enough. Like, I think the fact that IQ has surpassed him quite clearly is indicative of that. I think the fact that Josh Hart has surpassed him in the ranking, you could probably argue that Quentin Grimes has been better than him this season. Like, it's rough. It's rough.
I just want to say one thing. And maybe this is me playing devil's advocate. Maybe I'm being a little bit defensive here because I've always been an RJ fan and I'm always going to have a soft spot for him. But moving on from him because, like Grimes and Josh Hart, what am I trying to say here? I just want to make sure I word it correctly. Grimes and Josh Hart are better than RJ Barrett in the role that Tom Thibodeau has etched out for them. And Tom Thibodeau is the ultimate high floor coach. But moving on from RJ Barrett would basically say that you have no interest in chasing volatile outcomes. You don't have any interest in chasing a ceiling if it potentially lowers your floor. You're good with Brunson and Randall as your two best guys. You don't, and you want to surround them with consistent role players. Because what RJ, and this isn't giving an RJ a pass, I will forever be, on the team of, okay, RJ, maybe you don't like this third option role that isn't letting you be Star J as much as you want. But, and we said the same thing about Cam Reddish, so you have to be fair. The first step in becoming a star in today's league, this isn't the 90s anymore. This isn't the early 2000s. It's not just like a scorer's league. You have to be a complete player. And it's on RJ to take the challenge that Tibbs is giving him and be a consistently impactful player regardless of his scoring output. And he hasn't been that at all. He doesn't rebound very well, even though I think he's been doing that lately. He doesn't defend consistently. He's not creating for other people, like when he attacks closeouts. Like, when was the last time, like, think about, like, if you think about Obi Toppin as a Knick, his most common play is catching the ball in the corner and attacking a closeout. I genuinely can't remember the last time I saw RJ attack a closeout, acting as like a true role player. He's still getting like most of his touches through pure initiating reps. So it's not like he's playing the Grimes role where he's getting no touches and he's being asked to contribute in ways. No, he's getting somewhat of a diet that he wants. He has to take what he's given and make, turn water into wine or whatever fucking analogy you want to make. And he's not doing it. So I'll never be the type to just, 100% blame one side. I think blame goes around here. I do not think the Knicks have done RJ. I don't think they've done a good job of building around RJ. I don't think they've done a good job of, putting him in an environment where he's allowed to take his speed bumps. But RJ hasn't helped himself at all. And tonight was just another example of that.
Yeah, I agree. I think my pushback on that would be like, I think you look at someone like Quickly who like got to take those bumps and is now blossomed to like a guy who's probably going to win 6 Man of the Year. And the Quickly just had more of a base. He had more of a diet as a shooter. He could just do more as a facilitator, as a passer, as a defender. Like, I think at some point it has to come down to like, what are your capabilities as an NBA player? And RJ Barrett just does not excel in any real facet, aside from being able to get to the rim. But he can't leverage the fact that he gets to the rim nearly enough as he should be able to. As a scorer, as a facilitator, as somebody who draws free throws and converts on free throws. So like, your best skill, if you can't leverage it, then what do you do? Like, his two best skills were spot up shooting and rim pressure, and he's not that good at spot up shooting this season, unless you talk about from like the right corner. And the rim pressure is always going to be there. That's the one part of RJ Barrett's game. Like, he's going to get 2 feet in the paint no matter what. But is it going to end up in a pass to an open shooter? Is it going to end up in a shot that leads to free throws, or is it going to end up in a brick that he ends up flailing, getting to the ground, and not being able to get back in transition, and you're just starting opportunities for the other team? And realistically, for his career, it's been the third option. So, I don't know. That's just kind of where I'm at. I do think it's on him. The onus is on him at this point, but I don't expect him to realistically be able to make that leap. So if he's not able to make that leap, I think at this point you kind of just need to find somebody who fits within that framework. I'm not saying it needs to be a role player. Like,
So question for you, Tyrese. Let's just say I don't have a framework in mind. I don't know who else they'd give up or what the picks would be. But let's just say hypothetically, RJ plus matching salary plus whatever picks. Pick your guy who is what Tom Thibodeau wants at the small forward position. Defense, threes. What's up?
Jimmy Butler. He was Jimmy.
Okay, Butler's too good. Don't not Butler. Like a true role player third option. Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby. How close are they, in your opinion? Somebody who's consistently raising the floor of the small forward position. How close do you think that team is next season?
I mean, I think they make the second round. Like, my thing with RJ Barrett is like,
so what's the point then? What is the point of making a trade that their ceiling right now is the second round, at least?
I agree, but at the same time, I think it also comes down to the fact that, like, A, I would probably just try to get off that contract. B, I think there's a role where like you could trade RJ Barrett, and like I think Grimes and IQ could soak up that usage, and I would want them to soak up that usage, especially Grimes. Because like if he's gonna keep playing the way he's playing like this, like he has equity as a pull-up shooter, as the distributor. He's obviously a really good defender. Like, so I think my point is that I think he actually drives pretty well, despite the fact that like he doesn't drive as much as he should. I think he actually drives pretty well. My point is like,
do you think that? Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, no, go ahead.
No, you weren't done answering, so you go. I'll ask.
Okay.
I'll keep the question in mind.
I'm just at the point where it's like, yeah, RJ Barrett has the ceiling, but he also has no floor. And at this point, you're kind of just like, yeah, the volatility aside, I'm not getting the high end of my volatility compared to like other guys like Quickly and Grimes. So I'm just kind of like, at this point, do I really want that volatility when like the guys who are in that same level of talent pool as him give me more, have more elite traits, and realistically are waiting to soak up that usage that RJ Barrett has. Like, Quick is already this good, and again, we've seen his numbers as a starter. Now imagine he's like getting those reps that RJ Barrett would normally get. I think you have a better player there. I think Grimes in that role is a better player there, especially if he got like the ability to like embrace that role, because you know he can do the role player stuff. You know he can like attack and close out and shoot threes and pass out of his drives and such. So, and then you get the player that you would get for RJ Barrett as well. So like, I think there's a world where they're just a better team. I think there's a world where ultimately speaking, they should just like look to optimize the players that are better than him around them. So I'm just like, at this point, it becomes less about RJ Barrett and more about like, how do we make Julius and Brunson the best versions of themselves? And I think that's realistically, that's goal number one for the front office. And if RJ Barrett doesn't fit into that ethos, then you can't. You just kind of have to let it go.
Yeah. So, okay. So my question was going to be, let's say we reach a Julius situation this summer, because we know this front office is all about value, and let's just say this summer there's no market for RJ, which would surprise me. He's 22 years old, and I don't think he should be given up on. So the Knicks decide to keep him. Optics aside, just from a completely rational situation, is there any merit to just starting next season with Brunson, Grimes, Hart, Randall, Mitch, and then letting Quickley and RJ be the Quickley and Hart off the bench together?
As
And
a
could that
lineup,
could that help RJ getting more bench minutes?
I don't think he'd like it. That's the whole problem with RJ. Like, there's also the ego aspect of it. If you're getting to the point where you're benching RJ Barrett, you're basically saying he's so much of a negative that this is our last shot to make this work. That's the problem. Like, you're doing the Russell Westbrook thing.
The thing is like, it's gonna be year 5.
Yep.
You have to start having these conversations. And look, it's year 5 and he's going to be 23 years old. The RJ quandary is, I remember this preseason, Schwinn said something, I'll never forget it, because it was very prophetic in my opinion. He said that the Timberwolves made a mistake trading for Gobert. And he made a point to mention that he really likes Gobert as a player and understood his value to the Jazz. But what the Timberwolves did in trading for Gobert was they skipped a step in Anthony Edwards' progression. They basically assumed he was already further along than he was. And Anthony Edwards is a really good player, by the way. Not comparing him to RJ Barrett. Different worlds of players right now. But there's a trajectory for a type of player that when the Timberwolves made that trade, they sort of removed Anthony Edwards from that trajectory and we're like, okay, we're throwing you into the fire. You have to be really good because we're all in right now. The way Tibbs coaches, the way he basically lives and dies on each game, refuses to, take little steps back so that the team can down the line take multiple steps forward. RJ has basically been shoehorned into this role player role. And regardless of what you think of him as a player right now, or what you think of him as a player, what his theoretical upside is, it has unquestionably diminished his theoretical upside, in my opinion, and his ability, more importantly, his ability to reach his theoretical upside, because there aren't bumps and bruises in Tom Thibodeau's world. The only question Tom Thibodeau asks is, are you good enough to win me this game on this night? And it's why he loves Josh Hart. It's why Josh Hart will close every game he plays. I'm going to say it every night. Josh Hart was bad tonight. He just was.
Yep.
But Tom Thibodeau will always be able to talk about Hart's effort and rebounding being important and reliable. That's how he views all of basketball games. And there's lots of positives to that. Like I keep saying, high floor. But there are downsides to that. And one of them is theoretical ceilings are less likely to be hit. And aside from Jimmy Butler, I don't know how much credit you want to give Derek Tibbs to Derrick Rose, because that was Tibbs' first season as a head coach, right? Like Derrick Rose had already been through the bumps and bruises. So Tibbs kind of just got handed MVP Derrick Rose. So, I guess there's Jimmy Butler. But Jimmy Butler, the case for Jimmy Butler is Jimmy Butler was Josh Hart before he was Jimmy Butler. Tibbs loved him because of his defense and his effort, and that kept him on the floor. So if RJ Barrett wants to stay on the floor long term, he has to do that. He has to up his effort, can't not be diving for balls. He has to improve his rebounding. He has to improve all the ancillary parts of his game. And that's sort of on him. I'm not saying there's not a path forward. Jimmy Butler has laid out that path. But it's not – I don't think it's the path that most top picks go on. What do you think about that?
I don't think it's the path most top picks go on, but I also think that, if we're being honest, he should have been a top pick. But, my whole thing with him is just like he had to be that role player role because it realistically like his rookie season was bad. It was bad. And like you saw flashes here and there, but like the shooting was bad, the finishing was bad, the passing again was bad. And Tom Thibodeau was like, okay, we're gonna break it down. We're gonna make you do like these things really, really well, and it's going to make you a better player in return. And it worked. It worked. And then they tried to kind of like really try to have Julius had a meltdown. We already know what happened last season, but they tried to like expand his role, and RJ just could not do that. Like he couldn't do it. He was not able to play in that kind of framework. He just is not that level of creator, and I think now you're forced kind of like trying to find the balance. Where it's like, okay, with the starters, you're gonna do more of this whole like role player thing, or to like be a slasher who attacks closeouts and stuff like that. But then in the bench unit, we're going to give you those reps to like actually get initiation to like kind of give you those bumps. I kind of do feel like that was them trying to like balance out year 2, year 3, and it just hasn't worked because he just it. I don't think he's being put in the best positions, but I also do think that at some point like the best position doesn't matter if you're talented enough. Like we talk about optimization, we talk about like putting guys in their best spots. Like is Jalen Brunson optimized? Like he gets a lot of usage. I don't think that's him being optimized. Like Jalen Brunson went from playing in 5-out spacing with Luka freaking Doncic and like guys. He got paint touches constantly, and he never had to think about like a big in the paint. And now you're putting him with 5-out spacing to the guy in the paint who moves the least in the NBA. I don't think that's optimizing Jalen Brunson. I don't think that's optimizing Julius Randle. But they're making it work because realistically, there's talent. I think with RJ Barrett is like.
I'm just gonna push back here a little bit. I agree that like that they're not being optimized, but they are being catered to the best they can. Sure, Brunson and Randall aren't being optimized because of the roster and because of Tibbs's need to have a paint-bound center, but that's kind of different. They're being optimized in the having the entire offense catered to them and being run through, right?
I think that it makes sense, but at the same time, it's like RJ Barrett's supposed to be a cog in that machine. You saw like them basically take like the first 25 games to figure out the usage triangle. Like that was a lot of them. Like you saw Julius scaling back. You saw RJ Barrett like leading the team in shot attempts for like the first 20, 25 games of the season, where like he had 2 more than everybody else. So they were like letting him take those shots, and they were letting him get his lumps, and then they kind of were just like, okay, this doesn't work anymore. You could say like they have unlimited leashes, or you could say like they've been optimized, but it's also like they have the talent to be optimized. That's kind of my thing. Like Tom Thibodeau, I'm not saying he's a great coach. He's a good coach. I'm not saying the system works because of like, it's a great system. It's because of talent. But it's also a system where it's like, if you have the talent to make it work, you make it work. And if you don't have the talent to not make it work, you're going to fail in it. See Obi Toppin, see RJ Barrett. And look at the guys who succeed. It's Quentin Grimes, who can do stuff as a shot maker, Emmanuel Quickly, Jalen Brunson, Julius Randle. Like, that's the problem. He just does not have the framework to optimize himself. And I don't think it's a matter of like, they're not working on it. It's like, how do you optimize RJ Barrett? How do you, like, you have to provide him 5-out spacing, and then he needs to get better. I think that's kind of where I'm at. I'm just like, he needs to get better. Also, that RJ being iced out thing is complete bull. It has not happened this year. It hasn't happened since last year. Like it rarely happened last year. Like it's not real. Like RJ Barrett gets a lot of opportunities. He's being iced out because he doesn't convert in his opportunities. Like he still gets those shots. He still gets those reps. He's being benched because he's been really bad since like the turn of the calendar year.
I mean, I agree that on the whole, he's not being iced out. I do think that there is this weird. There are times when RJ is in a groove, when it feels like they can sort of fudge the offense a little bit to run it through him more, and they don't do that. So when people say he's being iced out, I think that's what they mean. Like, Okay, so I'll make a weird analogy. Tibbs is very robotic in his substitutions, right? Like last night against the Heat, I thought that in the third quarter, RJ should not have been the one to come out at the 4-minute mark, but that's, robot Tibbs just does the same subs like all the time. I think a lot of times the offense kind of reflects its coach, and they just sort of go through the motions, and there's not really an attempt to adjust to what's happening in front of them. And so I think when people say RJ's froze out, that's more what it means. It's like, RJ can have, a few good possessions, or like it's clear that like he's the one who has it going, or he's got a good match. And then he'll go a couple minutes without a touch because Brunson and Randall, because they're the guys. When when RJ is supposed to be closer to one of them than everybody else. And sometimes it doesn't feel like he is. Sometimes it feels like he's a secondary option, even in his touches. I don't know if that makes sense, but in my head, it makes sense. Like he's viewed as like a play finisher, not a play starter.
Yeah, I agree with that because, like, realistically, that's his role. Like, he should be a play finisher. I don't really want him initiating much because, like, he just does not have that capability yet as a player. Like, he does not have that level of vision, that level of processing. And he doesn't have, like, the innate talent to, like, even in spite of that, make it work. Like, I think my example would be, like, did you ever think your Wallace and Julius will be able to, like, initiate offense to the level that he does? Even if you could say it's a subpar level. Like, say he's like Mendoza line at initiating league wide. Did you ever think he could get to that level?
Did I ever think RJ could get to Julius's level?
No, I'm talking about Julius. Like, from what you saw, like, I don't know if you watched Lakers Julius or like even New Orleans Pelicans Julius. From what he has been the last 3 years, did you ever think he'd get to the level where like he can do stuff as a passer like this?
Yeah, absolutely not. Well, as a passer, I feel like he's always been a skilled passer, but he's been a skilled passer in a way that's like, how do I say it? He's been a skilled passer in like I'm playing pickup and I'm just I can do shit like in the air, or like, like just because I'm the combination of like athleticism and size allows him to create angles and see stuff that very few can. But as far as like being a hub in the way he was, especially in the We Here year, no, I did not think he would ever be that.
Yeah, so it just kind of feels like at this point, like, I do think there's just like a margin that talent covers that like you just cannot get from, no matter like how much you want to work, how much you want to try to optimize them, whatever system you're in. Like, at some point, talent is just going to like shine through. And that's what I'm at. I'm just like, I'm not saying he's a bad basketball player because he's clearly an NBA level player. I'm questioning how much you can realistically do with his skill set and just his ability to process the game. And maybe that increases as he gets older and he's put into different systems, but I'm just not. Because the way you optimize him is like you give him reps that he doesn't deserve. That's kind of where I'm at.
But don't you think, like, man, like when Julius Randle was 22 years old, he had played like 20 games. Like,
fair.
I don't know. RJ's still so young, and like I feel like there's something like the things he does when things are going well are not things that a 22-year-old is supposed to be able to do.
I agree.
And we're completely in agreement about his output on the season. And I think that there are a lot of RJ fans who kind of blur the line between what they believe his theoretical upside is, combined with what they see when they see the best of him, with what his macro output has been on the season. They kind of are like, well, RJ can do things that Quickly can't, so clearly he's better. It's like, no, like there's literally zero evidence that they are even in the same vicinity in terms of their output as basketball players in the Lord's year of 2023. That's okay though. Like RJ has always been more of a wide range, volatile upside bet. But I don't think he's the type of player you want to just give up on unless the right trade's there. Like I don't know. You said it earlier in this, and I think this is just where our fundamental difference is, because like I just said, we're very much in line about how he's helping the team, or to be more frank, how he's hurting the team right now. But you said earlier in this that like the Knicks might just move on because like get off the contract, and like I just don't think that RJ Barrett's the type. I don't think we're there yet. That's my opinion.
I get it. Like, it's a very like aggressive move, but at the same time, I'm kind of just like, you have 2 years left of below market value Randall and below market value Brunson, and quickly is about to get paid soon. Like, I think you have your rotation set aside from RJ and Obi, really. Like, you have like the guys you feel like you can go into a playoff series with. I think even Deuce can be a contributor in some aspects. I'm not saying Deuce is better than RJ. Don't get ahead of me. Like, don't clip it.
What you're saying though is that Deuce has that, like, he isn't Josh Hart, but like Deuce has that skill set that Tibbs can always rely on. That'll just be there no matter what. So like Deuce is not close to as good as RJ, even given RJ's swings. But the floor might be like, there might be a more consistent floor, maybe not higher floor, but a more consistent floor, a more reliable floor.
Especially if he improves as a shooter.
Right.
So, like, I think RJ is volatile, but it's just like, this isn't the context for volatility. And realistically, like, how much more can you take of him just being this up and down player before at this point you're kind of just like, can we salvage this? And if we can't salvage this, then like, what do we do here? Because I do think you have to like think about those 2 contracts, because those are arguably 2 of the 5 best like contracts in the league. Like, it's got to be like him, Markkanen, like, well, not him, but Randall, Markkanen, Brunson, and then like 2 others. I can't think off the top of my head, but like, that's kind of where you're at. That's kind of where I'm at. Where I'm just like, you have to optimize the roster, and if trying to optimize RJ takes away from the rest of the roster, then I think you just kind of have to make that choice. And I think it's going to be hard to optimize RJ.
I think we're just gonna have to like agree to agree on most of what you're saying.
Yeah.
But just where I'm not with you is extrapolating the frustration that he's not helping the team in this season and let that carry over to projecting forward. The only way you can get me on board with this is if you can like guarantee that Tom Thibodeau is going to be the coach for the next 5 years. Because if Tibbs is the coach for the next 5 years, RJ's role isn't changing. There's no evolution.
I think you can guarantee for the next 2. I feel very confident. Like, unless this team bottoms out in the last like 7 games or so, I think you can see a world where like, well, Tom's coming back next year. Like, I don't think there's much debate on that. The year after, if they make the playoffs, he's coming back. At that point, it's going to be year 6. Heading into year 7. The problem with RJ, if he's going to pop, he's going to pop in a different team. That just kind of happens when like guys are on their second contracts and like they are still kind of like, like you saw it, Oladipo. You've seen it with Sabonis. You've seen it with Markkanen. You've seen it like, there are a couple guys every year who like come out of the cracks and are just like, whoa, why did this guy get moved? And it's like, well, he was never going to work in that system with those in that environment. He goes to a different environment. He pops. I'm not saying RJ Barrett can't pop. He's just never going to do it here. He's never going to do it here because, like, Tom Thibodeau isn't changing. And realistically speaking, like, you can reasonably expect Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle to be here for a while. You also have to consider the fact that, like, Quickly keeps getting better. Grimes keeps getting better. And it's like, if he's going to get more and more marginalized, then, like, why are you trying to, like, force around holes like square peg, you know? But I understand.
I can't disagree with anything you just said. It's just a bummer. And honestly, I think what makes me saddest about it is that we didn't just get 30 games of Quickly, Grimes, and RJ last season.
Yeah.
Like just to see them together. Because I do believe, I genuinely, like, I know Jalen Brunson's really good at basketball. I get that, obviously. I think we can win a playoff series with Jalen Brunson as our best player. He was unbelievable in that Jazz series last year. But I genuinely do believe that there is an intangible effect that Quickly provides as someone who is more of a spacer and creates more of an egalitarian offense. That when you combine that with what Grimes does as, his gravity, his movement, his defense, I think that RJ would have basically been option 1B. I mean, he basically was the last 40 games of last season, except instead of playing most of his minutes with Alec Burks, you replace that with Quickly. And instead of playing all of his minutes with Evan Fournier at the 2, you replace that with Grimes. I think RJ would have been even better. And I know the Knicks would have been better. And so, I don't disagree with anything you said. I do think it's possible the Knicks trade RJ. I'll be really sad if that happens because I do think it's still an upside bet that teams should make, that the Knicks should make. But mostly it just makes me sad that we never got even a little bit of a youth movement last season because it was so clearly the right decision. And me, you, and Sam said it every night that season.
Yep.
All right, before we get into comments, and there's so many comments. Y'all are awesome. We just lost to the fucking Magic. Just lost to the Magic on a Thursday night. We have 3 nights off, and there's just so many comments. We'll get to as many as we can. There is one more thing that me and Tyrese were talking about before we hopped on here that I want to sort of pose to the chat and see what you all think. But before that, I'm going to do the ad read. Without further ado, everybody's favorite thing. The NBA season is heating up, and there are still so many unknowns. Will the Knicks get or fall back into the plan, or will they keep a top 6 seed? When I'm looking to get in the action, I bet with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. New customers can bet just $5 pregame moneyline on any NBA team to win their game and get $150 in free bets if they do. Check this out right now. Everyone can earn up to 100% boost with DraftKings stepped up same game parlays. Download the app now. Sign up with code TBPN. Place a $5 pregame moneyline bet on any NBA team to win their game and get $150 in free bets if they do. That's code TBPN only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Unfortunately, Sam isn't on here, so we can't talk about bets that were made because I did not make any bets tonight. But, all right, let's get to some comments. Third game in a row, we give up threes at an annoying rate to a Magic team who's bottom 5 shooting threes. Tyrese, what did you think of their 3-point defense tonight?
It was good for the first 3 quarters, and the fourth quarter happened, and they just could not miss. And that was the worst part. It happened in the fourth quarter because I think they only missed 1 3 that quarter, and I thought the defense was really good until then. So it's unfortunate.
I agree. I could go on a whole rant about fucking hot take culture and needing to express polarized views. I think the answer just lies somewhere in the middle. There's so much variance on night to night shooting. There's so much volatility. A team like the Magic going 7 of 8 from 3 in a quarter, that just isn't all on the defense. That's just guys getting hot. And I know that sounds like a cop out, but sometimes you're just on the unlucky side of the draw for even a couple games in a row, or that just happens. For seasons it happens. You see guys, the analytics guys talk about shit, man. We saw a whole season of it with the Knicks, and everybody talked about it. The We Hear season, everybody and their mother was talking about, okay, well, this is coming back down to earth because opponents shot X from 3 and they were projected to shoot Y, and that's not going to happen in 2 seasons in a row. And then what happened the next season? So if you don't think in a game a team can get hot from 3, Cole Anthony hit that 3 from above the break when Quickly helped at the nail and then recovered. And Clyde was Quickly kind of blamed Quickly. And I thought Quickly's closeout I thought he recovered great, and Cole hit a really tough shot. I thought their defense was good, and there's just a ton of variance in shooting, man.
Yep. And their offense was enough to win the quarter. They scored 31 points. They didn't turn the ball over. They got really hot at the right time. It just when you go 7 of 8, and the one guy who missed was Paolo, who also hit a 3. It's just hard to come back from that. Like Cole hit 2. Caleb Houston hit a 3 for whatever reason.
For whatever reason.
Like Wendell Carter had like 2 heartbreakers. So yeah, variance just really fucking sucks sometimes.
Yeah. All right, Vivek here with a comment that sort of touches on something that I wanted to get into. That I was saying me and Tyrese were talking about. Knicks should be winning this game without Brunson. Agreed. RJ deserves the roast. Force him to talk, Leon. But getting outscored 39-18 by the bench is bad. We were bad this whole game, not just the fourth. All right. Tyrese, I am going to pitch it to you. The question I asked to Twitter, and anybody who has a comment, please comment in the chat, and I will get to it in a little bit. Is there any merit at this point to benching Obi Toppin? Because Obi Toppin is so far removed from his ideal role. It's year 3. Is it year 3? It's year 3, right?
Yeah, year 3.
Year 3. And the days of, okay, at some point we're going to start, we're going to cater to Obi. That's it. It's gone. Like what we were just saying for RJ applies even more for Obi. Tom Thibodeau has niched out a small little role for him, and he just basically wants him to be, a spacer. And that's not what Obi is. And nights like tonight, I mean, he was minus 25 in 12 minutes. That's the game right there. We lost the game in Obi's 12 minutes. At this point, I think the franchise isn't invested in him. There's no development happening. At what point do you just say, okay, like we're going to get Grimes, RJ Quickly, and Hart more minutes. Josh Hart, you are now getting all of the backup power forward minutes, and Grimes and Quickly, and RJ, you're going to get some more minutes, and basically go to an 8-man rotation with Deuce there as the 9th man sometimes to spell some rest. Do you think there's merit to that?
I would be surprised that that's the playoff rotation. Like I think at this point, like what is Obi Toppin gonna do for you? Like you can't play him 10 minutes in a playoff situation. Like he's never gonna get those rolls, like those touches in the basket that he realistically needs. He's never going to be able to shoot as well as you need him to. Like, he's just been bad since the turn of the calendar. He's been shooting like 20% of catch and shoot opportunities. Like it's bad. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's still suffering from like that break in his leg earlier. So like, the injury plus basically the stop-start of his minutes and the fact that like Josh Hart just does more, it's hard to fit him into rotation. I've heard a lot of the whole small ball Obi Rando, and it's like, if you're gonna run a small ball unit, why would you play Obi Toppin in it? What does Obi Toppin give you in a small ball unit that this team will utilize that like Josh Hart doesn't give you, or RJ Barrett doesn't give you? Because Josh Hart is going to give you more as a passer, more as a rebounder, more as a defender, more as a finisher right now, honestly. And Obi Toppin is going to give you length that he can't leverage because he's improved defensively, but he's still not somebody who could like put in most. Like I think he's improved as like an ISO defender, and he's improved as a team defender, but he's still like not a good defender. I think at best he's like he's a solid, like a mediocre to solid defender, and he has moments where he looks really good, especially against bigger wings. But Josh Hart also has moments where he looks good against bigger wings, and I would argue he looks better against bigger wings than those like compared to like the Tatums of the world and like such. So it's just hard to find a role for him, and he isn't going to give you much. And Deuce, especially if you're playing Cleveland, makes a lot more sense coming off the bench because even if it's like 5-7 minutes, you're just basically going to send him 5-7 minutes of his against those. It's huge. Could swing a game. So
yeah, I agree with everything you said. The one aspect of it that you didn't bring up that I'll just bring up is Josh Hart is passing on threes now more than he was early in his tenure with the Knicks, and it's approaching frustration territory.
yep.
And that is more passable at power forward. You have a bigger guy on you, So catching and attacking is slightly easier for a guy like Josh Hart. It is an untenable approach as a small forward. It's why the RJ Hart lineups don't work, because you have RJ who isn't shooting well this season, and you have Josh Hart who refuses to shoot. And then it's Obi and a center and quickly. There's no shooting. There's no this lineup does not have any shooting. Um and I mean, when RJ and Hart close, it's Jalen Brunson who likes to operate inside the arc. It's Julius Randle who he's shooting a lot of threes, but he likes to operate inside the arc. You need their shooting has a ton of value. And so letting Josh Hart slide over to 4 for more of the game, all of a sudden you're going to have Grimes on the court more of the time. You're going to have Quickly on the court. They're right now, those two are their 2 most valuable spacers. And in 2023, spacing is very important. And so, yeah, I mean, if Obi's not going to be, if they're not even going to try to use him properly in year 4, I don't think you even have to worry about like his trade value. Like, it is what it is. We're deep enough into the season. The most important thing right now is these next 8 games in the playoffs. And you can't convince me that replacing Obi's 12 to 15 minutes a game with more Hart, more Grimes, more RJ, and more Quickly doesn't help the team. I'm 100% sure it helps the team.
Yeah, I also think it buys Randle rest. You can get rest out of the guards. You really can't get rest out of the big rotation unless you want to put RJ at the 4, which they won't do. So Hart at the 4 makes more sense. I think he can soak those minutes fairly effectively. You could play him next to Hartenstein, and realistically, you can get another floor spacer in there, whether it be McBride, who I know he's not shooting well from 3, but he's still a better shooter than Obi Toppin. I also just think that just kind of speaks to the lack of shooting this team has. But that's a problem for a different day. You can't fix it in season unless you want to randomly reinsert Evan Fournier. But yeah, he just does not have a role in this team. They're never going to optimize him, and the 15 minutes or so that he plays at night is just not enough to get him doing anything offensively and be an impact player.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear what you think of this. It almost felt like Obi can see the writing on the wall. His second shift, that the start of the 4th quarter, I'm not even going to say it was bad. It was just really weird for Obi. He was weirdly aggressive. Normally he's not passive. He's just such a team first guy that you never see him, taking that mid-range shot that he took. But he was just, I don't know. He called his own number more than he has in a long time. So since he was starter at the end of last season. And it almost felt like Obi was well, fuck it, man. I'm going to get mine. If this is the end, I'm going out shooting.
Ironically, that's how he should play. You should be doing more stuff as fake dribble handoffs. You should be trying to get you have a functional dribble. You have a functional dribble and 2 gallops in the paint. You can make that work. The fact that he's I'm not gonna say I do think it's coaching, but you have the ability to pump fake and drive to the basket. Sometimes you don't have to sidestep it and make it a 3. I do think a lot of that is probably tips, but I also think at some point you need to be able to be okay, dude. You might have to need some Josh Hart syndrome. Ironically speaking, Josh Hart has the trigger that Obi Toppin has, and Obi Toppin should be playing more like Josh Hart. It's actually hilarious. So, yeah, it sucks because you could clearly see that he's made strides, especially earlier in the season where he was getting those reps. Before he hurt his leg, he was really taking those reps as a shooter. And the finishing wasn't there, but I do feel like the finishing has taken a step up with Hart in the lineup. So it kind of feels like if he was able to blend those 2 parts of his game, you ideally have what Thompson wants out of his backup 4. But the fact that the shooting has dropped off as the finishing starts to uptick just a bit is just really unfortunate timing. I want to get to the Ariel question because I think that's a really good question.
Okay.
What do you guys think is the Knicks' best small ball lineup in a game where RJ is struggling? Feels like him playing well, especially in defense, is crucial to making those lineups work because of his size. I agree, but if RJ is struggling, I think the best small ball lineup has to be quickly Grimes, Hart, Randall, Mitch, or Hartenstein. You can really switch between the
Do you
centers.
think? But do you think he? I mean, I think he means like small, right? Like Randall at the 5.
Oh yeah. What am I saying? Sorry. So
So
then,
it'll be Brunson, quickly Grimes, Hart, Randall.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Unless you want to like go defense, and put in Deuce, but like, yeah, I think that's probably your 5 best players. I think that's
So
probably
the thing about going small is you can mitigate a lack of rim protection by doing 2 things well. One, you need to be crisp at the point of attack, and 2, you need to have guys off the ball who are very, very good at anticipating breakdowns, showing to help, and then recovering onto their guys. That is Emmanuel Quickly to a T. Those are his 2 best defensive things. Emmanuel Quickly is the most valuable player the Knicks can have in a small lineup because he plays bigger than he is. Like, obviously not more valuable than Brunson and Randall, but like relative to his actual value, Emmanuel Quickly is incredibly valuable to those small lineups because he plays bigger than his size and he does those things well that negate the lack of rim protection. And so, especially on nights that RJ is struggling, you can't just say, okay, we're going small and RJ is 6'6" and Quickly 6'3", so need RJ out there. No, Quickly needs to be out there almost no matter what because he is the best at those things that are going to make your defense better without somebody at the rim covering for mistakes. Like, Tibbs loves Mitch as a rim protector because he's always worried about the worst case scenario. And so you saw tonight, like, Randall wasn't good tonight. Mitch was actually really, really good tonight. And Hartenstein was for a bit too at covering for teammates' mistakes. That's why he loves those rim protectors. So without a true rim protector out there, you still need someone out there who is going to cover for teammates' mistakes. And nobody on the team is better than Quickly at anticipating a mistake, showing to dissuade the guy who just exploited the mistake from getting to the basket or having an easy shot, and then recovering onto his original assignment. That is Quickly's greatest skill as a defender.
Yep. Quickly, I mean, I wouldn't say he's our best defender. Oh, I think he's arguably our best perimeter defender, just because he just does so much as a free safety.
Mm-hmm.
I would say he's probably the most integral defender on the team because he covers so many gaps on this team. And you need that, especially with Brunson and Randall and RJ, who have their defensive moments, but like usually are mediocre to bad defenders. So like having a Manuel Quickly there who could like cover the best guard, be able to switch over to the best wing in some instances, be able to like recover enough from like to defending the corner to like come down and dig and then like generate events. The fact that he also generates events for this team is huge because we don't have a lot of event generators. Like we have rim protection, but we don't have a lot of guys who like get in the passing lanes and get steals. You saw tonight, like he had 2 steals, Grimes had 3 steals, and like that's indicative of being able to like anticipate the defense and then exploit it. And we don't have a lot of guys who do that. So yeah, he is arguably their most impactful defender just because of how much he can do and how versatile he is.
Yeah, I don't think it's an argument. I think he's definitely their most valuable defender. And it sounds weird to say because Grimes is such a good defender, especially at the point of attack. And, you know, when you think of Grimes, I feel like a lot of people are like, okay, like if he ever becomes a really good offensive player, like that's it. I'm actually not worried about Grimes' offense. I think he processes fine for the most part. If any, the nights he's slow on the stat sheet, are just because he doesn't get involved as much. But once he amps up the aggression, I'm not worried about like any of the actual skills, like his ball handling, his finishing at the basket, his shooting. I think he's good at all that. If I was a coach on the Knicks, I would just show Quentin Grimes a bunch of film of Quickly off the ball defensively, because we're going to see this postseason what Jalen Brunson getting hunted looks like. We already saw the last 2 games the Knicks played. And as good as Quentin Grimes is on the ball, we need him in those starting lineups to do that quickly stuff. We need him to cover for Brunson's mistakes. That will bring another layer to the starting lineups defense that it doesn't have right now. So yeah, I think if people want to know how I think that Grimes can get better, I think that's it. I think that's a step forward he can take is his off-ball defense.
I have a question. So, like, I was thinking for like a playoff starting lineup, do you think there's credence in running out Brunson, IQ, Grimes, Randall, Mitch, and then making Brunson the first sub, putting in RJ, and then I'm just like in the theoretical aspect because it's never going to happen. But like making RJ the first sub and then Hart the second sub, and then essentially making it so like your backup unit is like IQ, Hart, RJ, Randall, Mitch.
So what you mean though is you would put RJ in for Quickly first and then start the second quarter with Quickly in for Brunson?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, of course there's merit to it because Quickly's better than RJ. Like, yeah. See, you're just flipping their minutes, and that how can that be a bad thing? You're getting the better player more minutes. Right?
Yeah. I'm kind of just like, and I think it makes sense because like if you're playing the Cavs, assuming that they finish 5th, which I still do, hot take. I do think there's like credence in like maybe just going, okay, let's get our 2 best guard defenders against their 2 best guards and like try to win those minutes, because if RJ's slacking and like we need to cover for Brunson anyway, why don't we give him 2 safety belts instead of 1?
Yep. Yeah.
And then like you tell RJ Barrett it's Karis LeVert and Shetty Osman, you can win those minutes.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I am very worried that I think you could make the argument that that's the number one worry. Who's going to guard Darius Garland on the Knicks?
Yep.
I mean, I guess it's RJ, but I hope RJ is up to the challenge. And you know what? Like that may be even a little bit unfair to RJ, because like RJ, like we saw RJ guard Jimmy Butler well. That's the kind of guy that RJ, we've seen RJ guard Jason Tatum well. He's supposed to be okay.
But think of like RJ, like he guards bigger players well, but smaller players give him a lot of trouble because he's just not as shifty and he doesn't really fight through screens and contact and such. So I'm kind of just like, it would make more sense to like have the guys who are able to defend at the point of attack, who are able to like 1v1 guard their best guards, and then kind of just be like, okay, RJ Barrett, like come in and like, well, one of them sits, you have more freedom because at least one of those guys is going to be in the game. Especially if you're benching Obi and you're putting Deuce in those minutes. That means that for all 40 minutes, you have one of Quickly, Grimes, or Deuce on the floor with an offensive threat, and you're kind of able to like keep one of those guys preoccupied. I think that's kind of where I'm at, where I'm just like, yeah, I don't know if I trust him to guard Darius Garland. I think that might be a really big thing where like they might just go at RJ Barrett or Jalen Brunson, and then you have the Grimes like trying to like guard in those spots, and he can't do it.
Well, what they'll do is they'll use Okoro as a screener.
Yep.
That'll be their primary action. Well, that's unfair. They'll get Randall involved too, because Mobley and Allen are very, very skilled, like with their hands around the basket. So they'll hope Mitchell can win. But I actually think Grimes is going to be very up to the challenge. He's so good at screen navigation. I think the Cavs are in for a surprise if they think Mitchell is just going to get to his spots. I think Grimes will do a good job. And I think their backup, when Garland has the ball, and even if RJ does a good job, I think they'll use Okoro as a screener. And what they'll do is they'll have Brunson show to slow down the ball handler so that RJ or Grimes can recover. And then when they recover, Brunson will, get back out to Okoro. And if Okoro beats them on catch and shoot threes in that split second that he's open, the Knicks are willing to live with that. And I think they should be.
I honestly kind of feel like the matchup might be Randall and Garland. I feel like that's probably like, because I think Donovan Mitchell is like strong enough to deal with Randall, but Garland isn't, and Garland can't keep up with Randall's footwork because Randall's footwork is, regardless of what you say about his defense, like his ability to guard an ISO situation and his ability to just like keep up with guys 1 through 4 is elite. So
Yep.
I think there might be merit to like, okay, if you're not going to change the starting line, put RJ on Okoro. Well, no, you can't put RJ on Okoro. RJ and Mobley. Brunson on Okoro, Grimes on Donovan Mitchell, and then Randall on Garland. Might be.
I mean, they're just. I see what you're saying in theory. They're just never going to do that.
I know. I'm thinking too ahead of myself here, but I'm also just kind of like that would make more sense.
Christopher Vieira was not happy with Julius Randle. He said, Grundle is back, y'all. That was a terrible look going at IQ, and his defensive effort was non-existent for most of the night.
I agree.
I kind of commented on that earlier. So what? Let's hear your thoughts on Randall, Tyrese.
I thought he fucking sucked into the fourth quarter, which was too little, too late. There are good texts and there are bad texts. Like sometimes, like if you're like losing it, you get a tech, and you're just like, okay, this fires with the team. This guy's getting ignited. You saw it last night. They got the tech, and then they immediately like closed the gap in the third and into the fourth quarter. So like, there are good techs and bad techs. That was a really rough tech. You do not need to do that. It's halftime. They're not going to change the call. The bell's already rang, or the buzzer's already gone off. The bell's already rang. But like, it made no sense there. And then like you see, and then like as soon as you saw him get up, you saw like Grimes and IQ immediately go to like pull him back. Like, so I think everybody kind of knows. So I'm kind of just like, that wasn't a good tech. To his credit, he did play better in the second half, but at the same time, it's like, you can't do that. You can't put your team in a deficit that badly, and you contributed to that, and then like give them more of a hole to dig out of. Like 1 point, it's 1 point. I get it. I'm not saying that lost them the game, but you don't want to make it harder than it needs to be. In that instance, if it's like, I get it, you're being refed really poorly. Ultimately speaking, you took 10 free throws. You took 10 free throws, and it was even for the first and second half. The first half he took 5. The second half he took 5. So it was just really rough. It was just like, it's not something you need to be doing. Yeah, like he played a really shitty game, or a really shitty first half. I thought he was better in the second half, but I like the fact that IQ was like willing to kind of pop out his chest a little bit, even if Randall kind of didn't Randall brushed it off. But like the fact that IQ is able to do that that's a huge leap. That's probably a bigger leap than like on the court stuff, because that means that off the court, like he commands that gravitas. And I think a lot of Randall, aside from Randall, like I do see that Brunson kind of sees a lot of himself in him quickly. And I do think that, like, those other guys look at him as like the guy who's running the bench unit. And, he's going to win 6th Man of the Year. So, like, those guys, like, quickly being able to, like, step up in that role definitely looks, like, really good for him. And ultimately, I do think that shows well for, like, quickly stature within the organization and within the team especially. But it was just a rough, really stupid fucking technical, and a really stupid moment in a team in a moment that did not need any more stupid moments.
I couldn't believe. I was already like proud of Quickly for getting in between Randall and the ref and trying to just diffuse the situation. I thought that was just really heads up. Like, he's always just been a high IQ guy. But after Randall got the technical and they sort of started walking away, and Quickly was just sort of still like pushing him away, when Randall like shoved his arm down and then made it between Quickly and Randall, and you saw Randall literally just screaming in Quickly's face, like yelling at him, for Quickly to stand tall and just yell right back at him, like, he was like, dude, like, he knew he was not in the wrong, and to not cower there, I don't know. There's just, I know that meme is like, oh, he's got that dog in him. Like, I think we know at this point that Quickly's got that dog in him. Like, I think it's just another reminder that this is a guy who is like built for this stuff, built for this city. And, he said before the game, he's like, I don't want to be pigeonholed into like bench scorer, microwave scorer, like he doesn't want that. He's like, I don't put in all this work to not eventually start one day. And you asked the question earlier, like, I don't know, like, is that going to be on the Knicks? Because, like, as long as Grimes and Quickly are Knicks, even if Quickly is always the better player, next to Jalen Brunson, Quentin Grimes will always be seen as the better fit in the starting lineup.
Yeah.
So what, I mean, Quickly has grander aspirations, and it begs the question, like, how he reaches them here. And I guess that's just a question that only time will tell, because, I mean, I certainly don't have the answer.
Yeah, like, I think that's it too, where it's like, you're going to have, like, ultimately speaking, I think Grimes, IQ, and RJ kind of playing into, like, you're going to have to, if you decide to keep all three of them, I don't think they will, because I do think there's going to be a trade at some point. But you're going to, like, you're ultimately going to settle on two of them. You're going to have to settle on two of them. Which two of them they are is the question. I think it comes down to, like, IQ is probably the best player of the three, but he comes off the bench. Grimes is the best fit next to Brunson. RJ is like the highest paid player in Knicks history, who also is the third overall pick, and there's pedigree there. So it's like, ultimately, you're going to have to choose between two of them, because only two of them can realistically get like those significant minutes for this team and be starters, because Brunson's going to be here. So
let's just say, hypothetically, the Knicks were, I know you don't like him, but let's say the Knicks got Embiid, and it didn't involve Quickly or Grimes somehow. It was like an RJ-based package plus all the picks.
I can see that, like RJ and Mitch. That makes sense.
Is Brunson, Quickly, Grimes, Randall, Embiid, is that a lineup you could see?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it makes a lot of sense. Like, Hart can essentially be your sixth man. You get buyout guys because teams use contender. So, like, I don't think replacing the depth would be that hard, because I think you get enough functional players to, like, give you a quote unquote bench unit. And I think that you could stagger enough to where, like, IQ and Hart running bench units would just win you a lot of games. So
shit, man, you would have to stagger, like Randall would be on that.
Oh shit, yeah. Like, Randall would probably be the guy staggered, which is
right.
not.
Yeah, you would have four guys who you value as initiators. And so if you think about, Brunson and Embiid, if you remember the Warriors, I know Draymond Green isn't, an offensive hub, although he kind of is in his weird way, like when paired with Steph.
Yeah.
But if you think about what the Warriors did is they sort of paired them, and they made sure two were on the court at all times. So, like, it's kind of cool to think about, hypothetically, the Knicks being like, okay, we're going to play Brunson and Embiid, full quarters together, and then we're going to pull Quickly and Randall early, and then we're going to start second quarters with Quickly and Randall plus the bench unit, and we're going to get Brunson and, like, that's actually kind of sweet to think of. Like, I mean, to me, that's a title contender. I don't know about you.
It would depend on, like, Embiid's health and Embiid being able to play up to the competition. But, like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then you just have Grimes kind of floating between the units. Like, that would be nuts.
Yep.
That would be really good.
All right, here's an interesting perspective from Ariel again that we didn't really cover when talking about RJ. He says RJ's lack of physicality is a problem on both ends and on the glass. I think this is an awesome point. I think this is just Absolutely a great point. RJ's defensive rebounding is probably his worst skill that he has, and it's been better lately. It was bad again tonight. He, for his size, has no business being as invisible as he can be on the defensive glass sometimes. And when Ariel brings up here the lack of physicality, he's talking about two things specifically, in my opinion. One, when he drives to the basket, he does not use his body to go through people and to like. I know he's LeBron James. When you see LeBron fucking James take contact, he goes through that contact. It does not veer him off his course. The reason RJ is bad at drawing fouls is because he does not do a good job of actually like making it clear that there's contact. Like he operates below the rim and he operates in a very weak manner a lot of the times. And so a lot of times he's just fading away from the basket and he's turning decent efficiency shots into lower efficiency shots. And then on defense, he's talking about using his physicality to navigate screens and get rebounds on the defensive glass. And all of these areas are consistent with the idea that RJ plays smaller than his size.
Yep. It's been a problem. I think like you are 6'6". Why are you like trying to like get the bump and then trying to like throw up this 5-foot floater / jumper that's gonna hit the rim and then bounce off? Like I don't get it. I don't get like you are built like a brick shit house. You do nothing but eat protein and lift weights. You should be able to take contact. Like you're probably 235 right now. Why are you playing contact diverse? It makes no sense whatsoever. But like again, I do think that him being a below average athlete hurts because he can't just like power through dudes or up over dudes. He has one way to go and he just does not want to take that path. Like if he was a, let's say for example, Anthony Edwards, like even if he was playing contact diverse, he would be able to just dunk over dudes sometimes. He doesn't have that burst. He doesn't have that lift. So it's like when you're a below average athlete and you're contact diverse and you already don't have good touch, you're just combining like probably the three worst qualities that you need to be like that you have like as a finisher in the NBA. Combine that with like just god awful physicality. You can't make that work. Like it just there's not a recipe for success there.
Yeah, 100% agree. All right, here's a good question. Daniel Mejia? Sorry for butchering your last name. Is the round 2 optimism still alive? What do you think, Tyrese?
Yeah, it is. Like, if we get the Cavs, do I think they can win that series? Yes. Do I think it'll be a hard-fought series? Absolutely. Can they still win it? I think so. I'm not going to say the round 2 optimism is dead. If they drop to 6 and we're playing like the Sixers, then okay, then yeah, good season. At least try to make it 6 games. But like, if they keep the 5th seed, I just kind of feel like they have the ability to beat the Cavs. They have the personnel that matches up really well against the Cavs. The variance of shooting really sucks at this moment. But realistically, like aside from that fourth quarter, they shot 40% from 3, but like the first 3 quarters, they weren't shooting well from 3 at all. So one bad quarter kind of doomed them, and it sucks. But I think their defense was fine tonight. They gave up 111 points. They didn't really the Magic didn't really shoot well. It was just that one quarter where they couldn't miss. So, I think the round 2 dream is still alive, and Cleveland. I'm sorry, Cleveland has Cleveland's offense is a problem. I get it; they're really efficient offensively. Their offensive rating is high up there, but there's a threshold that Cleveland can't meet. There are just points that Cleveland cannot score. If you can get to 120, I think Cleveland has a hard time matching you because they don't score. That is that team's big issue. They have two guys who they realistically rely on scoring, and then the rest of their lineups are like non-shooters, and like they have Shetty Osman, but like, and then Karis LeVert, who could probably win them a game or lose them a game. And our bench unit is significantly better than their bench unit. I don't think that's a conversation. Like, I think we have the personnel to contest their best players. I think we have the stronger unit. And ultimately, I think that our personnel in the starting lineup is enough to handle their personnel in their starting lineup. So I think that that dream is still alive. I'm not going to let 3 games sway my opinion.
I'll be very interested to see how Tibbs attacks the matchup. Because the Cavs do stagger. I watch a lot of Cavs. My closest friend is from Cleveland, or he's not from Cleveland, but he basically is. His favorite teams are all Cleveland teams. And he's, a Cavs guy, so I watch them for him, and I just, I think they're an enjoyable team to watch. And the Cavs make sure that one of Garland or Mitchell is on the court at all times. If the Knicks decide that they're going to match up Grimes and Mitchell's minutes, which I could see Tibbs doing, he loves doing stuff like that, and then give Quickly his normal sub pattern, which is, he comes in for RJ or Grimes at around the 4-minute mark, it's going to kind of be redundant because, I don't want to say redundant, but basically what I'm saying is Grimes and Quickly will be sharing the court very minimally when both Garland and Mitchell are on the court. And that's not ideal for the Knicks. You would think you would want those two on the court for when Garland and Mitchell are on the court a higher percentage of the time.
Yeah. It really just comes into like how Tibbs optimizes lineups. And even still, like, you look at the Cavs scoring, they scored 116 tonight. And like Donovan Mitchell scored 31. Garland scored Mobley scored 26. Garland struggled. Karis LeVert was like decent. And then like their bench gave them nothing. Like Lamar Stevens played 3 minutes tonight. So they're essentially running an 8-man rotation right now. And guys like Mobley's playing 39 minutes, Garland's playing 39 minutes. So there is a lot more margin for error for the Knicks, just given the fact that like they are playing so many positive players on the lineup compared to the Cavs, who like have, I would say, 7 guys I trust. Like, I don't trust Karis LeVert. He can win you a game. I think Karis LeVert's gonna have a game where like he puts a 20 or whatever, and the Knicks are gonna have to like withstand that. But otherwise, like, who on the Cavs is really gonna be like a significant threat? And if they're having to like cut guys' minutes early and like spend like 41, 42 minutes on like a game, I think that's going to add up for them. So, because I think that ultimately speaking, the Knicks having such a good bench and being able to like mix and match their lineups is going to help them be fresh. So I think that is a thing that the Cavs are going to have to like figure out, like, how do we win these minutes where like maybe Donovan Mitchell is sitting, and we can like really attack Garland and make him like put up bad shots.
I mean, this isn't me playing devil's advocate, but because I agree with everything you said, there is something to the Donovan Mitchell, something intangible to it. Like, I'm not saying he's gonna crush, because I think Grimes can be up to the challenge. But there's a very high ceiling for what he could do against the Knicks, because I think he's going to get up for that matchup. I think he wanted to be in New York, and I think he knows that like all the eyeballs will be on this series, and that'll be the story. And I don't know. It'll be popcorn inducing is what I'll say, because I that does scare me.
I agree. Like, but it comes down to like, is he going to be taking 23 shots a game? And if that's the case, then like, you're assuming that the Cavs maybe get 85 to 90 shots a game. If Donovan is going to be like a quarter of your shots, that might be a cause for concern. Because it also comes down to like, yeah, he's going to score the ball, but are other people going to be able to score along with him? And I guess it's like if you're trying to maximize touches in that kind of way, then I think that is an issue.
Yep. Knicks tape says at some point RJ has to help himself out too, even if he's not being fully optimized. I think we both agree with that.
Yeah.
Let's see what else we got. Hawkeye 420 says Brunson and Randall have unlimited leashes. That's how they're optimized. That's interesting.
I mean, I think usage has something to do with it, but I also think it comes down to like usage also involves like how much you're able to do with the basketball. And RJ Barrett just cannot do as much with the basketball as those guys can. Not as a shot maker, not as a facilitator. So it's hard to optimize a guy like that because realistically, the way to optimize him, in my opinion, is how he was played year 2. But if you're trying to put him into a role where like you're giving him more on-ball reps, it's hard to optimize that because he's just never going to make it worth it. Again, I go back to he looks a lot like OG Anunoby if you watch OG Anunoby tape. You're kind of just like he's a better passer than OG Anunoby, but not by much. And it comes down to like, can this guy creative like out of those ISO situations? Can he do stuff as like a sub creator? And if he can't, then like he just needs to learn to scale down. Or not learn to scale down, but like he needs to embrace being able to scale down and do more of the Andrew Wiggins thing. But it took Wiggins another team context and playing with like the literal greatest dynasty of our generation to learn that. And I don't know if he's gonna learn that in New York where like he's been revered since the day he got here.
Yeah. I got a text from my my Cavs friend, and he asked me, but I'm going to ask you because you're more the draft expert. Mobley goes number 1 in a redraft, right?
No.
Who goes number 1?
Franz.
Whoa.
I would take Franz at number 1 in the redraft right now.
Really?
Franz is that good. Franz is very good.
Okay.
I think Franz.
Mobley is number 2 then.
Yeah, I could say Mobley number 2. Franz is just nuts. Like
I didn't realize Franz had been so good.
Yeah, like Franz is like a near 20 PPG scorer and like 60 true shooting. And like he's not a bad defender by any. He's a positive net rating on that team. So like I think Franz is obviously in the All-Star conversation next year. Like he's that good. He's really good. And I didn't see this coming, but like he does a little bit of everything. He can also like shoot the piss out of the ball. He's hyper efficient in his touches. I still think he's leaving a bit on the table, especially since he's playing next to Paolo, who's like getting those reps. But like I think teams would take Cade because just like the tantalizing upside. But for me, I'd probably do like Franz, Mobley, Cade, Giddey. And that's probably my top 4.
Wow, I totally forgot Giddey was in that draft. That's crazy.
He's so good, man. Giddey's
yeah. Hawkeye 420 said, "Oh no, keep going." Oh.
Yeah. Giddey's so good, but like also Grimes is probably like 7 or 8 in that draft. So like, hey, it's okay.
Yeah, that's pretty nice. Hawkeye 420 says about the shooting. Why is it only us, Chef? Okay. It is not only us. This shooting variance happens to every team in the league. It just seems like it's the Knicks because we watch the Knicks every night. I had this conversation with Knicks tape earlier tonight about RJ and calls. Like, all I see from, and I'm an RJ fan, so I don't think I'm like separating myself from you guys, but from like RJ stands, all I see is like, well, you know, he gets fouled more than he gets sent to the line. So if you just gave him those free throws, what would it do to his efficiency? If you can't only do that for RJ, it's not like the refs are missing 3 calls a game on RJ and getting everything else perfect. but you have this bias towards RJ, which is okay. Like, you're allowed to be a fan. That makes you think that way. But like, if refs called the game that way, then teams would shoot like 100 free throws a game and there wouldn't be a basketball game. Calls are missed on everyone. I promise you, RJ isn't like, even if he gets a bad whistle, which I actually do believe he gets a bad whistle, but it's not like, oh, he should get 6 more free throws a game. It's like, okay, maybe he should get like half a free throw more a game or something like that, like relatively. And the same goes with 3-point shooting variance. It seems like the Knicks are like this crazy outlier with like, oh, the Heat were bottom 5 in 3-point shooting and they made a bunch of threes, and oh, Torian Prince, and now the Magic, who are awful. Like, okay, maybe the Knicks are like a little bit of an outlier, but it's not like this thing that's, oh, it's only happening to the Knicks. No, happens to everybody. 3-point shooting is very, very volatile, and sometimes some teams get good variance, and some teams get bad variance. Right now, we're on the negative end of the stick, and that will turn around. It's okay. And to Hawkeye's point, where he follows up, he says there has to be a scientific answer to this BS, man. If we want to talk about the tangible part of it, the Knicks defense is designed to embrace that invariance. They do not, like, Tibbs's entire view on life is the value of consistency. So what he values on offense should be very informative as to what he's trying to take away on defense. On offense, he values high floor buckets and low turnovers and shots at the rim and offensive rebounds. So he's trying to take away offensive rebounds. He's trying to take away high floor buckets at the rim. What are the ones he's willing to live with? He's willing to live with sort of open threes with our guys getting out. And if the other team gets hot, if that's how you lose, that's how you lose. We've been on the short end of that stick the last few nights.
Yeah, and like during our win streaks, you're seeing it the other way around, but like teams were hitting shots against us. Like we won the double OT game against Boston because Horford missed a shot that he literally leads the league in. So variance is a fickle mistress, and sometimes it hits like the worst moment. And right now it's kind of hitting when the team is kind of going through a bit of a funk. But then again, we play Houston, so I expect everything to be right in the world soon enough.
Yep. Nick's Tape asks, what's the ideal closing playoff lineup if everyone is playing well? Won't happen, but I want to hear your opinions.
If everybody's playing well, Brunson, IQ has to be in it. RJ, Grimes, Randall. I think that's where I'm kind of at. If everybody's playing well, then I have.
So you want to go small, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
In an ideal, yeah.
Yeah, because I don't see Jared Allen as this like feared rim protector. I think he's okay at it, but he's not somebody where you're like, oh, I should shrink the floor against him. I would shrink the floor against him. I would put him out in space. I feel like you're able to exploit him. I think he's a good offensive rebounder, but I don't think he's a world beater in that regard. Even though he's been averaging 3.5, I think you'll be able to make it work. But yeah, if everybody's playing well, then like the spacing and shooting, you basically be able to run 5 out. You run 5 out offense with Brunson and Randall, and have elite point of attack defense. If RJ's playing well, that means he's able to use his size as a defender as well, and he's boxing out on defensive glass.
So I think there's a lot of merit to playing, like your 5 best basketball players. I'm a little bit less sure that it's tenable against the Cavs. I think Allen is a monster, and then Mobley's just I think we would be giving up too much on the offensive glass, even with everybody playing well. But against the Celtics, right there with you. That's the 5 I'm closing with all day, getting Randall that space. If everybody's playing well, give me Brunson, quickly Grimes, RJ, and Randall, or put Hart in there if you want a little bit more rebounding. I know it's a bit of a cop out, but like I just think it's so unlikely that everybody's playing well that I just hope that Tibbs gets the answer right. And I'll just be honest. This Hart situation, it still worries me. Because I like Josh Hart as a player a lot, and I think he's a winning basketball player. I just really don't want him to turn into Alec Burks 2.0. I don't. I don't want to be like, God, why is he just a default closer? He doesn't need to be. He's not that guy.
Yeah. I didn't give it much credence, but after the Miami game, I think it's real. Because that was a game where Grimes and RJ were playing well. And you put Grimes in that late, that says something. That tells me that okay, you're trying to configure lineups with Hart in them to end the game instead of just playing him if he's playing well. So now I'm kind of concerned that maybe you're looking at a situation where he might just be default closer, and if he's just default closer, then that's rough.
Yeah, your example is a perfect one. And I'm not even going to give Tibbs Tibbs didn't even put Grimes back in. He put Grimes back in because he wanted to go small. So he put Grimes back in, but it wasn't Hart's not really giving us much. He was like, shit, I need Hart. I guess I'll go small. That was him saying he preferred Hart to Mitch basically, which I don't know, man. There's somebody in the I don't want to scroll back up. And I apologize to whoever said it, but somebody parroted something I said the last stream. Hart's a good player, but there's a reason the Knicks got him for what they did. He's not a perfect player. He's not a star. He doesn't need to be playing no matter what just because you like his rebounding and energy. There are different ways to impact a game. So it's just something to continue monitoring because, Grimes, RJ, and Quickly are all capable of really good games. And there will be games where two of them are playing well, like last night against Miami. And they're not going to be happy not closing in games they're playing really well in because Tibbs likes Josh Hart's energy and his rebounding. That's bullshit.
Yep. I do think it is something to monitor for now. Because beforehand, the argument was, well, two of RJ, Quick, and Grimes had never had a good game with Josh Hart as well. And Josh Hart was playing at such a high level that now that he's tapered off a bit in these last couple of games, and I want to say tapered off and he's been playing bad. He's just been not his elite role player self. He's been solid. But I think other guys have been playing better than him. So it's something to look for, and I will be curious to see if it persists, which I think it might actually end up doing. So I wonder how that's going to work. And I wonder if Tibbs will have the gall to turn away from it in the playoffs.
Yeah, it'll. It's just such a difficult balancing beam because Hart is a good player. So you don't it almost feels wrong to it. We're not being critical of Hart, just like we weren't being critical of Alec Burks last year. It's just, and Hart's better than Alec Burks. He actually helps winning even more. But I don't know. I don't think he needs to be out there every single night.
Yep.
Or excuse me, at the end of every single night. Obviously, he deserves to play every single game, but yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
All right. I think we're reaching the end. This guy Stanley came in here with a bunch of comments, so I feel like I should highlight one or two of them. All right, we'll end here. This is a great one to end on. Thank you, Stanley, for this comment. The next 3 games are going to determine the next season. We need to beat Houston, Miami, and play well against Cleveland. If we go 2-1, we have a great shot at the 5th seed. I really like this comment, and I'm glad we get to end on it because not only do me and Tyrese get to project forward, but I think there's a hint of optimism here in terms of a belief that we can go 2-1 and we can play well. So I'm going to throw it over to you, Tyrese. what do you think the Knicks will do in these next 3 games? And how important do you think these next 3 games are?
Well, I think summing up the season is, I wouldn't say it sums up the season, because I do think they have that 4-game stretch against like the Pacers, the Wizards, and then like New Orleans, where like they will probably be able to get some ground even if they falter a bit. But I do think this is kind of like the way to solidify yourself as that 5th seed. If you beat Miami, you get the tiebreaker. If you beat Cleveland, the 4th seed, I'm not thinking about the 4th seed anymore. They've lost too many games now at this point. But the 4th seed, it also gives you like a bit of an edge against Cleveland in terms of like, okay, we've beaten you 3 times with this new rotation, and you haven't been able to figure it out yet. We've beaten you with guys with Mitch hurt. We've beaten you with Deuce McBride in the lineup. Now we've beaten you with us at full strength. That is going to give Cleveland a bit of like that. That will definitely matter, because now it's like Cleveland has to figure out how to beat you. You know how to beat Cleveland. So yeah, I do think these are probably the 3 biggest games of the season. The Houston game should be a get-right game. This is a game where like you should win comfortably, 15 plus, and you should be able to like be bottle flipping in the 4th quarter. This should be a blowout.
Bottle flipping.
Yeah, like shout out to LeBron in the Garden, but like you should be bottle flipping in the 4th quarter against Houston. I think you can beat Miami at home. The fact that the game was close with Miami shooting the piss out of the ball is, I think, a testament to how well they shot and a testament to how good this team's offense is inside of that. So, like, you can beat Miami, you can beat Houston. If they went 3-0, I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think anybody would be surprised if they went 3-0 that week. 2-1, I think, is more likely, but I think probably beating Miami means more than beating Houston. Because you beat Miami, you get the tiebreaker. So
yeah, I mean, Miami's only 1 game back in the loss column now. So
yep, and I think Miami.
I guess Brooklyn is too. Wow.
Yep. So we're in a race. This is it. So these last couple of games, and Miami plays Saturday, and then they don't play again until Tuesday. After that, so and then you get Miami on a back-to-back. That's the big thing. You get Miami on a back-to-back, and I think they're going to be in Canada. Yeah, they're going to be in Canada, so you're going to get them on a back-to-back in Canada. And I wouldn't be surprised if they maybe rested some guys. So maybe they rest against Toronto and then play in the Garden, but like that matters. So getting that 2-1 is huge.
I think your projection is it's funny. Good bit, Hawkeye. I think your projection is spot on. I think 2-1 should be the floor. I think 1-2 is possible, but I don't think we'll do it. And I think 3-0 is very possible. This is a good basketball team, especially when Jalen Brunson's in the rotation. And I think it's good that we have a few games off to just diffuse from this sort of little mini slump. Tensions are kind of high. We get to come back to New York and just rest for the weekend. Julius gets to see his family. I do think that's a big deal for him. He talks about his kids a lot, his wife. I think just being back home with his family is good for him. And I guess the last question I'll pose to you is, do you think they view, regardless of Brunson's health, do you think they view it as, all right, we should win this game without him? Or do you think if he's healthy, they play?
I think this was Brunson's load management game. So I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of just like get the win. So they might just play Brunson. Yeah, I think at this point they kind of just okay, all hands on deck. We need Brunson to play. And maybe if they're secured by like the last couple of games into the playoffs, even if they're like the 6th seed, 5th seed, 6th seed, if they're secured, then I think you see a couple more Brunson load management games. And then you see Rando maybe get like the spot start just to get 82.
Yeah.
I think the 82 is big to him. like it also like it helps his like candidacy for All NBA and stuff. He's gonna make it, but like it helps candidacy, and like I think that matters to him, and I think it should matter to a lot more people because like playing all 82 is not common anymore. I think only 5 guys have done it, and 2 of them are the Knicks. So
yeah, and I hope he gets it. To be honest, like this has been a crappy little stretch here for Randall. But I mean, he literally, how many scored against Minnesota? He scored 57?
Against Minnesota,
Yeah.
he scored 57.
I mean, it's really too bad that the Knicks didn't get that win because that was a special performance, and we've pretty much just forgotten about it as a fan base. Honestly, like it's, I look, I've said some things about Randall and about more. I've never said anything about him personally. I would never do that. But about his place in this franchise and how going in a different direction could be for the best. But this has been a special season, and he deserves to be an All NBA player. And I hope that tonight can be put behind him and the team, and we can rebound against Houston, because he deserves it. He deserves to have positive vibes headed into the playoffs, and then playoffs are a totally different animal, and we'll judge those on their own. But I can't say enough good things about what Julius has done for the Knicks this season, and playing 82 games in today's NBA is incredibly impressive.
Yep. Also, to end, we're going to use some words from friend Strickland supporter, Mero from the Bodega Boys. Oh, the ex-Bodega Boys. Relax. It's a couple games, bro. Stop being old doom and gloom about the Knicks. They are fine. That's a good way to end it.
Yeah, for sure. Knicks tape isn't wrong here. When I saw Randall, like, dude, I'm getting the fuck out of Randall's way. That's for like when I saw Randall quickly, dude, that's not me. So kudos to Quickly for standing up for the team and standing up for himself, but I'm out of there. All right, I think we're gonna call it a little bit short of 2 hours. So many comments again. Thank you guys. I think me and Tyrese and Sam and Schwinn, when we're here, we really enjoy talking basketball together, and we have good chemistry, and we see the game pretty similarly. But it's nothing without everybody who tunes in and watches and asks questions. And we'd really appreciate you hitting the like or subscribe button. We're on that road to 1K. Appreciate you all for tuning in, and we all get a nice long weekend until we get Houston back in New York on Monday. So until then, everybody have a good night, and peace out.